Some of you may not like what I have to say in today's video, but I just have to call it how I see it. Don't shoot the messenger. Hi guys, Han here. If it's not your first time with me, then welcome back. And if it is, hi, I'm Han. I'm a K-pop fan of almost 20 years, and I've also worked here in South Korea as a marketing expert in the K-pop industry. Recently on my channel, we have been covering the ongoing saga between NJZ, HYBE, ADOR and NewJeans, also known on this channel as ADORgate. And I know that you guys know that today is going to be about the mess that was the first hearing of ADOR's injunction case against NewJeans to stop their independent activities in advertising, performing, and so on and so forth. But honestly, such a big bombshell was dropped in this first hearing that today's video, we're actually only going to be covering the infamous, notorious IGNORgate. Because I feel like, honestly, this could be a video by itself, which is why it is. And let me tell you, this story has my blood boiling. This one's personal, okay? That being said, do not worry. We will cover the rest of the arguments made during the first injunction hearing and the results of the injunction in my next NewJeans video. So stay tuned for that also. As usual, sources will be linked in the description below. And in the interest of addressing biases, I'm indifferent to HYBE and ADOR. I was indifferent to NewJeans until this court case because they done piss me off. I'm sorry. They've touched on one of my very, very specific pet peeves that is very, very active right now because I am going through it in my personal life. We'll talk about that later. But like, girls, any respect I had, you lost it. You lost it, plain and simple. And of course, those who know me, I'm always 100% anti Minheejin. She can kick rocks. And you know what? NewJeans can kick rocks with her. That being said, we do give credit where credit is due on this channel, and we try to make evidence-based, logical conclusions and predictions for this ongoing case. And I do actually have a little bit, just a little bit to say that might be seen as in defense of NewJeans. Just hear me out before you chew me out. That's all I'm asking. Also, this is a good point to say, please forgive my voice. I have been to 4 concerts in the last 2 weekends. I do a job where I have to speak all day, every day, and I have pre-existing vocal cord issues. It's going to take me a while for my voice to get back to normal, and I didn't want to keep putting this off, so I hope you guys don't mind, as I wanted to make this video for you guys. With that being said, let's get into it. You shush. Now, by now, if you're this far into this case, I'm sure all of you watching know what IGNORgate is. And if you don't know what IGNORgate is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell you. But we will be going back to the beginning of when this IGNORgate first started and covering how the story has progressed, evolved, changed, transformed over time, and the inconsistencies in its consistent retellings, as that is going to be the basis of today's discussion. The first time this story ever went public was back on September 11th during NewJeans' impromptu live stream. And because we all know that this actual incident took place on May 27th, this is 4 months after this happened. So already the version of the story that we're getting is something that's had time to marinate, if you will. During this live stream, Hanni didn't outright name Islet, but she did make a few claims that I think are worth taking note of. She mentioned that while walking alone in the hallway, another group had passed her by, and while they did initially all greet each other, when they passed by again, the manager of the other group told members to ignore her, deliberately within Hanni's earshot. She explicitly stated that she could see and hear everything being said. Remember that. Of course, even without mentioning the group's name, people already assumed that she was talking about Islet because of the ongoing media frenzy that was happening between the two of them, with Islet being accused of plagiarizing NewJeans. This is something we all know, right? In the same stream, she also complained about a lack of action taken by the new head of ADOR, Kim Joo-yeon. They actually single out Kim Joo-yeon specifically because she's the new CEO, but mind you, there's actually 3 new board members of ADOR. And at the time, Minheejin is also still a board member. And in that stream, Hanni says that she's dissatisfied with how Kim Joo-yeon handled the situation because Kim Joo-yeon said that nothing could be done. Mind you, the mishandling of this case became one of the main arguments for why they believe ADOR had not satisfied their obligations in the contract, and therefore they could terminate their contract with the company. This is the example they have consistently used since the November 28th press conference as to how the company has mistreated them, failed to protect them, and how they are victims of workplace bullying. That's the initial story. This is how we first heard about it. However, shortly after this, in August, the parents of NewJeans came out with statements of something slightly different. And actually, as I said, I've put my sources in the description. I couldn't find the initial August interview with the parents because they only did an exclusive with, I believe it was Uber Sports or Ugan Sports, but I couldn't find that article. All I could find were articles from October where the parents then responded to the response from Belift that Belift posted in October. So if you check the sources, that's why there's no August source, but the content is ultimately the same. So the parents stated that they brought this issue to Hyman and ADOR back in May, June of 2024. So basically right after this happened. At which point, Min Hee-jin was still on the board of directors, but she was no longer the CEO of ADOR, right? And the 3 new members had been appointed by Hybe. And of course, they accused the company of appointing those 3 members so they could basically outrule all of Min Hee-jin's decisions, which I think is a fair assessment, honestly. I think it's a power play. Sorry, that's the way the cookie crumbles. The parents claimed that Min Hee-jin had strongly protested on behalf of the members for this to be properly investigated. We don't know what that protest looks like. We don't know what she would have said or what she was protesting against, because that implies that ADOR was saying, we don't want to look into this, which, as we know, is not the case. But the company, i.e. ADOR, said that either the footage had been erased or that it never existed. Mind you, those are 2 separate sentences within the same paragraph by the parents. So this, in one line, they're like, they said it was erased, and then the next line, they're like, they said it didn't exist. So even their story doesn't make sense. Whatever the case. The parents also mentioned that they thought that it was weird that the company had gone through a whole month's worth of footage instead of the specific day that they claimed to have specified, which I think is very irrelevant, honestly. The point is that they went through the footage. They did or they didn't, right? But they thought that was weird and they made a complaint about that. The parents also brought issue to the fact that Belift themselves were part of the CCTV review process, which honestly, in fairness to them, does make sense. Why would you have someone be part of the investigation against themselves? And it was this mention of Belift that let us know that it was in fact Islet who were the group in question, because the 2 options were going to be Islet or in hyphen, and really and truly it wasn't going to be in hyphen, was it? On October 7th, mind you, this is also months later, the statement from the parents was in August, we're now in October, and this is October 7th, which is 2 days before Hanni's appearance in the National Assembly, which, mind you, at this point, nobody knew of. As far as we know, even Min Hee-jin did not know until the 8th. So Belift are putting this statement out simply because this is the time they are ready to do so. They make the following claims. They claim that they were informed of the situation on June 13th and that they reviewed the footage from the last 30 days from that point, i.e. May 14th all the way through June 13th. And they said, actually, in rebuttal to the parents' claim, that they had not specified the day of the incident. I don't understand why it's a complaint that they looked through all the footage. It's like, that's what we call due diligence. Because also, if they could find any incidents after the alleged date that Islet did greet the girls, it would also disprove their point. So I think it would make sense for them to search 30 days. But anyway, through their search of the CCTV, they claimed that they could only find one instance of Hanni meeting any of the Islet members. And this is the infamous CCTV that I'm sure you guys have all seen, where all the members of Islet who were present greet Hanni. They also said that they'd spoken to the staff who were present at the time, as well as the members, and all of them said that no such incident had taken place, and the words "무시해," ignore her, were never used. On June 19th, just 6 days after the issue had been brought to them, the parents of NewJeans, the ADOR board of directors, excluding Min Hee-jin, and the Belift counterparts all met for an in-person meeting where Belift presented the evidence they had found, i.e. the CCTV, as well as the statements from the relevant staff members. The parents were not satisfied with this, but at the time they did not pursue it any further. That is until August 14th, at which point NewJeans once again raised the issue, and this time Min Hee-jin took part in a meeting. But at this time, the CCTV footage had been deleted. So now, let's just take a little diversion to talk about this CCTV situation. Basically, the way it works in Korea is that because of privacy laws, all companies have to delete CCTV footage that is more than 30 days old unless it's actively being used in an ongoing investigation. So, mind you, Belift had presented the CCTV to ADOR and the parents of NewJeans just 6 days after they had inquired. That was June 19th, which was still well within 30 days of this incident happening. So they still had a few days to say like, oh, we think something's missing, we want to look at more CCTV footage, or we want to go for the CCTV footage outside, or whatever the case might be, right? They had more opportunity to do that. And if they had done that at that point, if they had raised issue at that point, there was still plenty of time for them to go through and look at additional footage. They would have had, maths, they had until the 26th. So at least another week, right? They didn't do that. However, they waited 2 months after the footage would have been deleted to then come back and be like, no. We think the part that we need is not in the part that you showed us. And then they had the audacity to go in public and be like, look, they deleted it intentionally. It's like, no, they deleted it in accordance to the law. They have to delete it because you didn't ask them to keep it because they didn't think it was part of an investigation. Now, we will talk a little bit about the potential for there to be deleted footage, because I do think there's a little bit of credibility there, but I don't think it's as nefarious as NewJeans side would like us to believe it is. Anyway, back to the timeline. Following Bealiff's statement on October 9th, just 2 days later, Hanni went to the National Assembly. And this is where her story begins to change. So this time she mentioned that she'd been preparing for the Busan University Festival, and this actually brought into question if the dates had actually been wrong, and ADOR, Hybe, Bealiff, the company, which is collectively the company, had provided the wrong CCTV footage or not. The reason this happened is because the Busan University Festival was on May 28th, whereas this incident took place on May 27th, and the CCTV is from May 27th, but we actually know that's not correct. It cannot be May 28th because we're in Japan doing a live broadcast. So this is already a testament to how Hanni's memory is not precise. It's not clear at this point. She's mixing up her own timeline. She's literally mixing things that are objectively on 2 separate days. So that makes her a what? An unreliable narrator. Thank you. She also said this time that she was waiting in the hall, whereas you might remember originally she said she had been walking down the hall. So that's also changed. We now know from the CCTV that she was in fact waiting in the hall. So this is truthful, but it's an example of how her story has changed over time. And that the 3 other members and the manager had passed her by. In this telling of events, she said that she said hello to them. She did not say that they actually responded to her. Whereas in her initial telling, she had said that they'd all responded and greeted each other. Again, based on the CCTV, we know that they did actually all greet each other. Or at least we didn't actually see Hanni greet them because we didn't see her bow, but we definitely saw the island members greet her. But interesting how she didn't say that they greeted her in this case. And then she mentioned that 5 to 10 minutes later, when they were leaving, the manager made eye contact with her. This is a key point, remember that. And told the members to pretend not to see her, i.e. using the word specifically, mushihe. And we'll talk about why this word is so controversial in Korean, because that word itself has power. She also added some emotional pleas that she couldn't understand why she had to endure or go through such a thing, and why this was taking place in a working environment, and that she had come here today to the National Assembly to make sure that this never happened to anybody else, because this was not the only time it happened to her. And I think this statement right here, I felt like a lot of people forgot she even said this, because I didn't realize this until I actually went back and rewatched her National Assembly statement, which, mind you, I've linked for you in the description. She specifically says, this is not the only time this has happened. And my question is, okay, so in all this time, why have you never mentioned any of these other times? Like, literally, in all this time that we've been talking about how she's been mistreated, mind you, the first public mention was back in September till now. Why have you not mentioned any other case of when you've been mistreated? Because remember, they're trying to paint this as we're being ostracized, we're being bullied at the workplace, but the only example you've given is a maximum 4 people who, mind you, technically have public beef with you, not greeting you in a corridor. Anyway, I digress. Finally, we get to the latest version of events, which is what we hear at the injunction first hearing. This is not told by Hanni herself, it's told by the lawyers, but it's supposedly a paraphrasing of Hanni's words, right? They mention that the manager under a Hybe umbrella label ostracized and harassed Hanni. That's a big claim for a single word of mushihe to straight up ostracized and harassed. Harassed, mind you, harassment is usually a consistent aggression or frustration. Like when you harass somebody, I mean, yeah, you can have a one-off harassment, but generally harassing is an ongoing thing. And then ostracize as well. Ostracize is pushing somebody out of a group. As far as I know, NewJeans and Islet weren't besties before all of this happened. So what is she being ostracized from exactly? This single manager telling her 3 girls not to greet her would not constitute NewJeans as a whole, mind you, being ostracized from the entire Hybe company. Even if we were going to go with their definition that Hybe and ADOR and all the other labels are one company, you cannot say 4 people in a company not liking you, or 7 people if you include all the members. I think there's 6 members in Islet, right? Whatever. Oh, 5 members in Islet? All of Islet and their manager not liking you is not the same as a whole company ostracizing you and treating you like outsiders. Of course, I can imagine that the air in the Hybe building is a little bit stale when NewJeans walk in, but this example does not prove that, is the point. The lawyers also claimed that the 3 members passed her by without greeting her. Remember, it went from we all greeted each other to I greeted them to now they absolutely did not greet me. And then they added that some of the members mocked Hanni with words and actions. Now, where did that come from? Because before it's just that they ignored you, and now suddenly they're mocking you. They're making fun of you with words and action, which means they would be talking to or about you as well. Very interesting how this is suddenly, like, I understand legal hyperbole, but this is literally claiming things that have never been claimed before. I also think this retelling of the events actually also shifts a lot of the focus onto the Islet members' actions rather than the manager's actions. Until now, the focus really has been that the manager said to ignore her, but in this retelling, they're actively saying like the Islet members not only played along, but actively enjoyed ignoring her and making her feel uncomfortable, which is just a wild assertion to suddenly bring it out of nowhere when you've told the story publicly 3 times and every version has been different. And of course, things look even worse when we hear the evidence that ADOR had provided. Now, before we get into that, I do just want to remind you why this all matters. And you probably thought I was going to ask you to like and subscribe right then. I mean, since we're on the topic, do that. But no. But to be serious, to begin with, I've always actually believed Hanni with the story. I do think it's a very random thing for her to make up, and it's so petty and meaningless that she's most likely telling the truth, or she was at one point anyway. The issue that I think many other people had when the story first came up is just how insignificant and petty it seems. Like, okay, somebody at work doesn't like you, so what? But the reality is that for NewJeans, this story has significance. This is the basis of their entire argument for why they are suffering workplace bullying and how the new management at ADOR post-Minhijin has failed to protect them, which is one of their contractual obligations. By proving that ADOR has not met their contractual obligations, it then justifies their reasons for wanting termination and therefore downplays the legitimacy of ADOR's injunction or lawsuit against them as to why they can't go and do their own activities because they shouldn't be punished for not doing anything wrong, right? This is their argument. Now, of course, this argument does have a lot of holes in it. As we've already mentioned, Minhijin was still on the board of directors at the time of this incident, so if she was able to protect them, she should have been able to protect them then. Not only that, we know that legally, ADOR, Hybe, and Belif are 3 separate entities, so you cannot group the actions of Islet or other other Hybe subsidies as the actions or responsibilities of ADOR. But the biggest and most evident problem with this argument is that it's a goddamn lie. No, okay, let me just go on a little run. Give me 2 minutes. I personally, one of my things that you'll always hear about me is that I don't care if you don't like me. That's fine. That's your prerogative. I'm not for everybody. Not everybody's for me. If you don't like me because I'm a loud bitch, that's fair. I'm a loud bitch. I know I'm a loud bitch. Not everybody likes loud bitches. That's okay. It's not a problem. But if you don't like me for your misconception of who I am or based on what someone has told you about me, that shit pisses me off. Like, you don't have to like me, but dislike me. Don't dislike this image or this like imagination of who you think I am. Dislike who I actually am as a person. And for you to go out there and tarnish my good name and talk shit about me, I can't sleep at night. Like, that shit pisses me off. And you know what? It's pissing me off even more because I'm going through it right now, like with an ex-friend. It's like, I'm never going to tell that to you because I just don't think it's worth it. But like, I'm going through it right now, so it's even more poignant. And then when I saw this, when I saw that CCTV, when I saw those messages, again, as somebody who believed Hanni, as someone who was like, yeah, this probably did happen, bitch, bitch, don't even piss me off. Ooh, if I was Eyelet right now, if I was Eyelet's manager, I would be crashing the fuck out. Let me calm down. Let's get back to the story. We were presented with two major pieces of evidence in this court case that led us on to the fact that Hanni's whole story had been a lie. Now, the first piece of evidence, ironically, was submitted by Hanni's own lawyers themselves, which I think is absolutely hilarious. To my understanding, there were some KakaoTalk messages. These KakaoTalk messages were provided by Min Hee-jin to Sejong Law Firm, the shared law firm that she and NewJeans are using together. And they actually presented these messages in court with some parts redacted, mainly members' names, and they had cherry-picked which messages they wanted to share. Now, I'm not sure how ADOR had access to all these messages, because these messages, mind you, were sent on June 2nd. So this was just like maths. How many days were in May? 6 days, 5, 6 days after the incident. This is when the messages between Hanni and Min Hee-jin were sent. And so I'm not sure how ADOR got their hands on these messages, because as far as I'm aware, those wouldn't be in the audit that they did back in April, since I doubt any new messages that Min Hee-jin sent would sync at that time. I don't know if they have access to like the complete evidence that Sejong submitted, even though they only presented the redacted message. I don't know how that happened. But whatever the case, they came with receipts and they came ready. Both sides presented these same messages, but Sejong presented them redacted, reduced, very specific messages, trying to paint it as Hanni retelling the specific parts where individual members had treated her in a certain way. She talked about how one member looked uncomfortable, one member supposedly looked like they were ignoring her, and so on and so forth. However, ADOR's side came with the whole conversation. And the main point of their argument was proving that the whole ignore her comment was fabricated by Min Hee-jin to begin with. So let's have a look at this conversation. I was in the 4th floor hallway practicing by the elevator room. From there, 3 Islet members and a manager came out, so I greeted them. All 4 of them went into the styling room and I stayed in the hallway because it was almost time to leave. But then, about 5 to 10 minutes later, the 4 of them came out of the styling room. I heard them opening the door, and then the manager with them, I heard say something like, "Just pretend you didn't see her and walk past." And I just want to point out the Korean that's used here, because in English you could actually translate the sentence with ignore as well, but it's a different word from the ignore that's being the title of ignore, the 무시해. So this sentence in Korean is 그냥 모르는 척하고 지나가라. 모르는 척, 모르다 means to not know. 척 is pretend. So pretend to not know. Pretend you don't see her. Pretend you don't notice her. 하고 and 지나가라. Pass by. Pass by her and pretend you don't see her. And that's what Hanni's claiming she heard the manager say, or something along those lines is what she said. And then her next line is, I can't remember if those were the exact words, but that was the general gist, the general message. 정확히, certainly, clearly, 그 단어, that vocabulary, 이었는지, whether or not it was that vocabulary, 기억은 없고, I don't remember. So I don't remember if it was that specific wording, basically. 그냥 대충 그런 말이었다. 그냥 just 대충, something like that. 그런 말. Words like that. It was just words like that, or to that essence. So that's Hanni's own words here. Remember that. And then when they walked past me, the manager literally did not look at me. Remember, during National Assembly, she said that the manager had made direct eye contact with her and then chosen to ignore her. One of the members seemed unsure what to do and kept looking at the manager, responding, yes, yes. And then Min Hee-jin chimes in, at what point did you notice something was off? And Hanni clarifies, when the manager said to pretend not to see her. And that is when Min Hee-jin chimes in with those famous words, 무시해? Is that what she said? And then Hanni replies, it was just like, mind you, Hanni's actually responding to the previous message. It was just like, there's no need to go that far. But when I heard the manager say that, it got to me personally. And then Min Hee-jin, once again, instigating, says, they said that loud enough for you to hear it. Did all 4 of them ignore you? So she's now throwing out questions, leading questions, mind you. Hanni never said that they had deliberately said it loud enough for her to hear, but Min Hee-jin is the one who planted that idea, and that's what Hanni repeated in the live stream in September. And then she's also saying, did all the members ignore you? Remember how at the very beginning of September, she said that all the members had greeted her? Mind you, September being after this June conversation. Then it changed to, I had greeted them. Then it changed to, they actively ignored me. And then Hanni replied, yes. Mind you, she's responding again to the previous thing of, did they say it loud enough for you to hear? Yes, they said it while coming out of the door. Mind you, just that the fact that it's loud enough for her to hear doesn't mean they said it loudly intentionally for her to hear it. But she claimed they said it deliberately. And then Minhee just says again, clarifying, did the islet members ignore you when you greeted them? The manager told them not to respond to your greeting. And then Hanni replied, one member kind of half bowed and avoided my eyes, and the last member did bow, but they seemed anxious. So she clearly stated that, yes, even when the manager had supposedly said, pretend not to see her or ignore her, whatever it was that she said, the members, at least 2 of the members, still made some effort to greet her. That's very different from her saying that none of them greeted me now. In response to Minhee asking, did the manager tell them not to respond to your greeting, Hanni says, I'm not sure. I definitely bowed to them. And then she says it in English, so you guys can read this. See, I totally understand why the girls would be uncomfortable and awkward when they see us, because there's so much rivalry between our teams in the media and inside the company, so I fully get it. I wouldn't say I felt offended. Honestly, it was just weird. The word she uses in Korean is ukida. Ukida can mean like funny, but it can be like strange as well. Like, oh, that's a bit odd. Like that kind of thing. So in this situation, she's showing compassion, like very good on her, mind you. And this is so sad because this shows like she does have that maturity. It shows an element of her character. It's just that she decided to throw her integrity away to make a good story for her court case. But at this point, we can see that Hanni actually has the maturity and the emotional sensitivity to some degree to say, I can understand why they would react that way. And she even said, I'm not offended by it. I didn't feel offended. I just thought it was weird. So why are you now going to the National Assembly and they ignored me? Like, bitch. I'm sorry, you can't just play the victim when it's convenient to you. That shit pisses me off. She also continues, it once again reminded me, wow, there are really people in this company who are so nice. But I'm not even bothered by them. If you're worried that this bothered me, no need to worry. And I think there's also another thing people are not touching on. She told Minhee, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But then a couple months later, oh my God, Kim Ji-young is not doing enough to protect me because of this incident. It's such a big deal. It's the biggest problem in the world. Why the switch up? Why the change? What happened? It became convenient. That's what happened. Anyway, so what are our main takeaways from this? Number 1, the manager had said something along the lines of pretend not to see her and just pass by. But she hadn't heard the exact word, mushihe, even though she's claimed to have heard that word in every retelling of this story, that she used the word mushihara, right? And now we actually know that mushihara word never came into existence until it came out of Minhee's mouth or her fingertips. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, again, 1 minute tangent. Let's talk about why mushihara is such a big thing in Korea. I've talked to you guys before about the importance of pride, dignity, all this kind of thing, honor, right? In many Asian cultures, but very much so in Korea as well. Especially Korea, a country that is considered a small country. Like if you think of where Korea is, there's Japan to one side, China to one side, Russia to one side, and then the rest of the world. So Korea themselves consider themselves a shrimp amongst whales. There's actually an idiom about when whales fight, it's the shrimp whose back is broken. When China and Russia and Japan have historically had wars, Korea always got caught up in the mess, and it was always Korea that was damaged. And of course, there's the colonization. Of course, the recent colonization of Korea by Japan is the one that most people know, but throughout history, they have been colonized by China and other countries as well. So for Koreans, pride as like a country, but then also pride individually is a very serious thing. And this word mushihara is not like, it's like the word ignore in English doesn't carry the same weight. It is like someone is absolutely like disrespecting your entire existence. And I actually I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I had a case where I had used the word mushihe about somebody. Actually, I was saying that they were the ones ignoring me to a Korean person. They got so pissed off. They were like, stop. Don't you ever say that I mushihead you. Don't ever say that to me. And I was like, bro, calm down. I wasn't even that mad about it. But she explained to me, like, this is when I first came to Korea. She explained to me, like, that word is very serious. Like, you don't use that lightly. You can say I didn't respond to you quickly or whatever the case might be, but you don't use that word mushihe to talk to people. It is a very, very, like, venomous word in Korean society. So that's why this story, even though it still is petty to a lot of Korean people, for a Korean person to use that word messier to someone who doesn't speak Korean, or about someone who doesn't speak Korean, or just to another person in general, it's like a very low word to use, and it's like, it shows that person's mindset of how they're seeing the person they're talking about. And that's why some people would have sympathized as be like, how could you say messier to her? That's so rude. Like, she's just a kid, blah, 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 blah. So this word messier has a big meaning, and that's why they keep like playing on that thing specifically. But it's all lies. It's made up. It's Min Hee-jin saying, oh, this is an opportunity. This is a good, we can use this. And again, mind you, I think there is some credit to this retelling, this specifically the telling in the messages, because it is so close to when the initial incident happened, right? It's just a few days after. But I do also wonder, did Min Hee-jin see this and think, because mind you, she was already on her way out. They'd already removed her from CEO position, and she knew that her time, her days were numbered, basically, right? So she's probably looking at this and like, how can I use this for something? We know she's an opportunist. We know she's an evil mastermind. We know she's very good at twisting things. We know she's a manipulator. It's the number one trait of a narcissist, right? So I have to commend her. She was thinking quick on her feet, but we can see that she's asking those leading questions, trying to get a very specific response so she can paint a specific picture. Anyway, the last thing we want to take from this is that obviously Hanni herself admitted that even though the islet members were confused by whatever it was that the manager said, at least 2 out of the 3 members, she confirmed through her own words, still made some effort to greet her. And I do think it's very cruel for her to be aware of this, for her to have written this in her own words at basically the time of the event, and then to go to court and say that they ignored me. I think that is very vindictive. No matter how much you're trying to plead your case and you're trying to make your sub story sound better for the audience, those are accusations against real people who you are aware are innocent, and there is no excuse for that as far as I'm concerned. Like, you know what you're doing, and that is a very evil thing to do to anybody. And that, honestly, that is the singular reason why I've lost all respect for NewJeans. And I have tried to come at these girls with so much compassion throughout all of this. They've tried my patience time and time again, but I always remind myself that to some extent they are victims of Min Hee-jin. They are not in a healthy mindset, which, while that does not exempt them from the responsibility of their actions, it's something to take into consideration. But this is a very calculated, very deliberate move that she is aware she is making, and I cannot, fundamentally, on a human level, it's something I cannot stand. Especially in the environment that it's in. Hanni is not Korean, but as someone who obviously now lives and works in that field and probably liked K-pop before that, we all know how ruthless the public can be, how ruthless netizens can be in Korean culture, in idol scandals. And these are young girls significantly younger than she is. And she had that compassion at that point to be able to say, I get it. I understand why they'd be uncomfortable. I understand why they'd act that way. And then to watch your fans go and attack these girls constantly and have their name dragged through the mud and their career potentially ruined because of something that you as an individual have said. Also, just a side note, Danny too, you were here. You were at the scene of the crime. Nothing to say in this whole time. Interesting. Anyway, that's all our takeaways from the messages. But I do want to point out one other thing. A lot of people have been pointing out that, remember, these messages, at least some of them, were provided by NewJeans' own lawyers. And I've said it a million times, and I'm going to say it again. Isn't it interesting that those lawyers are working for Min Hee-jin and NewJeans, who have two very opposite interests, and now Min Hee-jin is providing them, because those messages on Sejong's side, they got those messages from Min Hee-jin. Min Hee-jin is now providing the lawyers who are supposed to be defending NewJeans with the material that is actively hurting their case. I'm not going to beat that dead horse again. Now, the second piece of evidence is the one that I know everybody's really excited about. It's CCTV. Oh, we got video. I get it. I was shook when I saw the CCTV too. However, after having sat and watched other people's opinions about it and rewatched it so many times and then written my own script, I do have a couple things to say. Don't shoot the messenger, guys. I'm always going to be fair in my videos. If I do think there's some credibility to what the NewJeans side is saying, I'm going to say that. And I do think there's one or two things that I think don't really make sense in this situation, okay? Now, alongside the Kakao messages, ADOR obviously shared the CCTV, which we can clearly see that Hanni is sat in one corner of the corridor with two staff members. We don't know who the staff members are. And then Danielle is walking down the corridor in a, like a blue basketball jersey towards the elevator. And then the islet manager plus three of the members step out of the elevator and head into what we can assume is the styling room, right? Now, even my blind ass, I've been wearing glasses for almost my entire life, can see that those three girls very clearly and young Haseod Hanni, you know what I mean? Like they were fully, hair was swinging, like they did the thing, they did the do, they did those deep respectful bows that you see in all the movies and the Toha and anyway. So for Hanni to imply that they never greeted her or that she was the only one who greeted them or whatever the case might be, obviously debunked straight away off the bat. And of course, a lot of people have been celebrating this as like definitive evidence that everything Hanni said was a lie. However, I do think there are two interpretations you can take from the CCTV. Now, when ADOR presented this evidence, they did say that this is the only encounter they could find on camera between Hanni and the islet members. And if that is to be believed, that means Hanni's entire encounter story is a lie. Because the one consistency in her story from the beginning, from the text messages, before it even went public, all the way till now, is that the whole ignore her comment and the members not greeting her happened when the girls were leaving, which means there was two encounters. There was the encounter when they arrived and the encounter when they left. And as far as we can tell, this CCTV is only the encounter when they arrived. And this is why the parents are talking about like deleted footage and blah, 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 right? So if ADOR side is to be completely believed, that means that second encounter simply did not happen. It does not exist. And therefore that is why there is no video that was saved. And that's why everything else got deleted, right? Personally, I find that a little bit hard to believe. I don't think Hanni would have made up this story 6 days after it supposedly happened for no reason. And one thing to take into consideration is that during that June 19th meeting where the CCTV was shown to the parents, Hanni was not present. So she wasn't there to be able to say, oh, that's not the incident that I'm talking about. It's after this or it's before this. Now, does that mean that ADOR or Belif knowingly and intentionally deleted the second encounter? No, I don't think so. I think what could have happened, and this is just pure speculation on my part, this is just me thinking logically, is that, bear in mind, based on Hanni's text messages, 2 out of the 3 members did actually still greet her when they were leaving. It's very possible that whoever was checking saw them come in and greet her, saw them go out and greet her, and were like, well, they greeted her in both cases. Do I really need to keep all of this footage? Because mind you, she said it was like 5 or 10 minutes later. So that's like 20 minutes of footage as opposed to the 8 seconds that we have. I could see someone being like, regardless of which part I clip, they both showed that the island members greeted her. So I don't need all of this footage. And also, mind you, it was the parent who brought up the issue to ADOR and then requested the investigation. So there could have also been a miscommunication where the staff also weren't aware that there were 2 encounters that they were supposed to be looking for. And maybe this is just the first encounter that they found. They saw that very clearly the members greeted her and they were like, well, we don't need to keep looking. Yeah, they claimed that they looked past that as well, but that could be a lie. Like, it could be a lie. It could be an exaggeration. Either way, I don't think ADOR or Belif intentionally deleted the secondary footage of the second encounter, because ultimately, like I said, based on Hanni's first retelling of this in those messages, that footage still would not have backed up her story of they adored me, because from her own words, they didn't ignore her, right? So I don't think it was a malicious thing. That's the point I'm making. So for me personally, I do think the second encounter happened. Now the real question is, did the staff actually say ignore me? And honestly, the short answer is we can never know. Hanni herself, in that moment, didn't know what she heard. Like, that's the reality. I've been there. Like, even someone, I consider myself fluent in Korean, but every now and then I will just come across something that is so specific or so, like in an industry that I just don't know, like medical terms. And I'll just be sitting there like, Every time I take my cat to the vet, I'm literally looking at the doctor like, man, I need you to give it to me as simply as easy as possible, because when you start using all these organ names, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't blame her for not being able to understand or recognize everything, but the reality is, because she can't for certain say, I heard this word or I heard this sentence, it could all just be her interpretation. Mind you, there's already bad blood between ADOR and NewJeans at this time. She probably herself also felt a bit awkward about this, which is why she thought it was worth mentioning to Minhee in the first place, right? And like the ADOR manager could honestly have said anything at that point, and all it would have to do is catch the ADOR members off guard to make them be like mid-bow and be like, huh? This is a very stupid example, but she could be like, you know, my farts smell like hot Cheetos, and the ADOR members are just like, young. What? Like, and then they pass by, the moment's gone. Like, they were mid-bow and they've moved on now. Or they're thinking about, like, what the manager said. Maybe they got reprimanded and they're like, oh shit, like, we need to shape up. And you're like, fuck, let's go. Like, there's so many reasons. Like, I know those are, like, very, like, fun examples. But, like, generally, there's so many reasons. When we have a problem with somebody, we always think we are the center of their world. We think that they're talking about us all the time, they're thinking about us all the time, but we forget we are not the main character in other people's lives. And no offense, the NewJeans members have shown a lot of main character syndrome, but like genuinely, we forget that other people have their lives going on, and sometimes they do and say things that has nothing to do with us. They can be having a bad day and they can treat us badly because of it, and it can have nothing to do with it. I just can't see, like, also logically speaking, I can't see a world in which the members came in and did those deep bows and then just 10 minutes later they're like, fuck this bitch, you know? Like, it's so unnecessary, it's so immature. Like, even if the staff and the members have some like animosity towards NewJeans members, are they not justified? Like, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, even if she had said the messier statement, they would have every reason to do so. Like, I don't think that's a good enough example, because it's not malicious. Just, they're not doing it just to spite you. Like you said, you actively have an ongoing conflict in the media. Yeah, it's going to change their opinion of you. If they did that to you before all of this started, if you were being mistreated before all of this started, that's a different story. And mind you, the fact that they don't have any examples of how they were mistreated by other staff members before this incident is a prime example of how this is not a we hate NewJeans situation. It's a we are protecting ourselves against people who are literally attacking us. But anyway, I'm getting too far off my conclusion. So my point is that I think probably the manager said something that caught the ADOR members' attention, and because of that, they were distracted. It could have been, fuck her, don't look at her, ignore her, whatever the case might be. It could have been something completely unrelated, but frankly, there is no way we can ever know. And for that reason alone, this argument is weak sauce. Ultimately, I also believe that regardless of what was said, the ADOR members, the 2 out of 3 members, did greet her, because that's Hanni's recollection herself. And therefore, if we are to trust what is most likely the most reliable version of this story, there is no argument here. She was not mistreated. Even if the manager did say ignore her, the ADOR members clearly didn't listen and still greeted her. So what are we talking about? Like, oh, it's just so stupid. I'm sorry. Ultimately, this is a very small incident that is being greatly blown out of proportion. And if what Hanni said at the National Assembly is to be believed, that there were other cases, it shouldn't matter. Like, there should be other examples, there should be other evidence that she can call on. So why aren't we getting those instead? Mind you, lying at the National Assembly is perjury, because it is the legal government area. So keep that in mind. Don't perjure yourself in foreign courts, please. All in all, the important thing here is that no matter which side you fall on or who you're more inclined to believe, it is very clear that the basis of this argument is a downright lie. It's for that exact same reason that the court said that NewJeans side needs to go and revise their reasons for termination, because basically the ones they've given so far are no longer convincing. Even after the court case, Hanni took to IG to post some very questionable Instagram stories, reasserting that she was sure what she had heard, and ironically using one of the claims that Minhee loves to use the most, that her messages were taken out of context, which is ironic because it was actually her lawyers who cherry picked the messages they wanted to share, whereas ADOR shared a whole conversation. So I don't know I would love to have her explain how else you could reframe that conversation as anything other than how it's being taken. But go off. Anyway, her IG stories read, I remember everything clearly. I wanted to say so early in the court, but I held back. How can you take one part of a conversation and shift the meaning of it to benefit your point of view when I was the one who wrote the message? While you present yourself as a company that wants the best for us. Please stop harassing us, ADOR and Hanni. I have a lot to say, but I've been holding back simply because I don't see the need to have to escalate this issue any bigger than it already is. But if you think you have the audacity to make even more false assumptions about us than you already have, then I won't stay quiet. Now, personally, I found that second one very funny because I'm like, baby girl, we're already in the court. Like, where else are you going to escalate to? God himself? Like, what are you talking about? I find it so ironic because this whole time, for the last however many months we've been going through this now, bunnies have been consistently saying, oh, just wait till we go to court. They have proof. They're just not sharing their proof in the public. Because why would they do that? They're keeping the cards close to their chest. I'm like, baby, we are now here. This is the court. This is no longer the court of public opinion. The judge is sitting right there. He's like, bitch, you're wasting my time. If she has something to share, this is the place to share it. She's not sharing because there's nothing to share. There is no explanation to those messages. There is no explanation to that CCTV. Like, you can only deny what we can see for so long. I'm sorry. Just, you have to come to terms with reality. All this stuff that they've been saying about, like, oh, the CCTV is the wrong day, or this, it's stupid. If the girls themselves are not making those arguments, why are you looking for these false narratives to keep pushing? Why is it so hard for you to see the truth? Isn't that what you wanted? Weren't you saying this whole time that when the truth comes out, the truth is out. The truth is loud. We can all see it. We can all hear it. So what are you still fighting about? Hanni, on the small chance you ever watch this video, girl, if you've got something to share it. Do it for the plot. Like, all of us are here. We're ready. We're waiting. Like, can we just reach the end of this saga now? We're tired. Ultimately, this whole situation has been a big knock to NewJeans' case because, once again, it is the basis of their whole argument. And if they don't have a good reason for their termination, it is pretty much a slam dunk for ADOR to win this injunction. We don't know what they're going to have come back with, and they were supposed to submit their new argument by the 14th, which was a couple of days ago now. And they did say that the injunction result would come out on the 14th, but it's now the 16th and I have not heard anything. So who knows, maybe we'll get something on Monday. But as of yet, we don't know. As I said, today I just wanted to cover Ignore Gate, but in my next NewJeans video, we will cover all the other arguments made in the first injunction, and hopefully by then, the results of the first injunction too. So I'm very curious. Let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think really happened? And what do you think the outcome of the injunction will be? Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed today's video. And thank you very much for listening to my scratchy, creaky, croaky voice. This has been Hanni from the Haniverse. Thanks for stopping by. Annyeong!